The moment I reached across the table, the chairwoman decided I didn't belong there. She glanced at my hand, then at the flowers, and smiled in a way that invited laughter. "We don't shake hands with low-level employees." The reaction came instantly. A ripple of chuckles, a chair scraping back, someone covering a grin with a cough. The red light on the live stream camera stayed on. I didn't pull my hand away. For a brief second, she seemed annoyed by that. Her eyes flicked from my fingers to my face, as if checking whether I had misunderstood the hierarchy she'd just announced. The flowers felt heavier in my arms. "I'm here as instructed," I replied, keeping my voice even. She leaned back. "Then stand where you're told. This meeting is for executives." The incoming chief executive officer shifted, glanced at her, then down at the table. He said nothing. No one corrected her. I lowered my hand on my own terms and took the empty seat near the end. The laughter lingered, uncertain now, stretched thin by the quiet that followed. "Let's begin," she said, already turning toward the screen. I waited until the first slide appeared. "There's one thing you should know before you continue." Her head turned slowly. "If you're refusing to shake my hand," I said, "then by tomorrow morning, $2.1 billion will no longer be part of this deal." The silence hit harder than the laughter had. Then someone scoffed. Another laugh broke out, louder this time, as if volume could erase discomfort. "Enough," she said. "Sit down." I already was. The story you're about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Revenge Ada. While the characters and events are imagined, the power dynamics, misjudgments, and consequences reflect situations that unfold every day in real corporate spaces. Each story stands on its own with a message that is never repeated. Slides advanced. Voices filled the room again. Projections, timelines, confident assumptions. No one looked in my direction. I listened. I noted who laughed first, who avoided eye contact, who stayed silent when the chairwoman announced a short recess. People stood quickly, relieved to escape the tension they pretended not to feel. I remained seated for a moment longer. Then I stood, still holding the flowers, and walked out. No one tried to stop me. The meeting moved on, as if I had already been dismissed. The chairwoman tapped the table once. "We're behind schedule. Let's keep commentary limited to principles." Her eyes did not land on me when she said it. A man 2 seats down leaned toward the person beside him. "Is she staying?" The whisper wasn't quiet enough to be polite. Another voice followed, softer but sharper. "Probably with corporate. They always send someone to manage optics." I kept my gaze forward. The chief executive officer cleared his throat. "We should start with the revised projections." "Of course," the chairwoman replied. "Let's hear from finance." Slides changed. Numbers filled the screen. Everyone spoke, as if I weren't there. "Those assumptions feel optimistic," one board member said. "They're aggressive, not optimistic," another corrected. "That's why we brought in outside capital." Someone laughed. "If they don't like the terms, they can leave." The chairwoman smiled at that. "They won't." I shifted the flowers onto the floor beside my chair. The motion drew a glance from across the table. "You can set those outside," she said without looking at me. "They're distracting. I'll keep them here." Her head turned slightly. That wasn't a suggestion. They were given to me for this meeting. A pause. Several people looked up. The incoming chief executive officer watched the exchange, then looked away again. "We're not here to debate decor," the chairwoman said. "We're here to finalize authority." "Authority requires clarity," I replied. That earned a few looks. She folded her hands. "And who exactly are you here for?" "I'm here for the capital." A brief silence followed, not confusion, dismissal. "That's being handled," she said. "Thank you." The finance director glanced at me, hesitated, then spoke. "We still haven't confirmed sign-off." "Legal will handle it," the chairwoman snapped. "Let's move on." The discussion resumed, louder now, as if volume could reinforce certainty. I listened. I watched who deferred without thinking, who smiled when power spoke, who stayed quiet when it mattered. They had decided who I was the moment I walked in with flowers, and they were wrong. The finance director spoke again, carefully this time. Before we continue, we still need confirmation on funding authorization. The chairwoman waved it off. That's procedural. It's not, he said. Not at this level. Her eyes narrowed. We've reviewed this for months. He glanced at me, just a flicker, then back to her. The final release requires direct confirmation. She followed his look, irritation sharpening. From legal, she asked. From the Capital Controller. He corrected. The room shifted, chairs adjusted, pens paused midair. I met her gaze. That would be me. She studied my face, slow and deliberate, as if searching for a flaw she could point out. You're saying you control the funds. I'm saying I and the managing partner authorized to release them. A board member scoffed. You? Yes. The incoming chief executive officer leaned forward. How much authority are we talking about? All of it. Silence settled, heavier than before. The private tranche, I continued, accounts for the largest portion of this merger. Without it, the remaining commitments cannot proceed. That's not what we were told, the chairwoman said. That's because you didn't ask, I replied. Her lips pressed together. And you felt the need to oversee this personally. I insisted on it. Why? Because the last deal I delegated collapsed under misrepresentation. Another pause. This one felt different. The finance director nodded once. She's listed as sole signatory. The chairwoman's voice cooled. This meeting is about final alignment, not introductions. Final alignment requires the person who can say yes, I said, or no. A board member cleared his throat. So, this isn't ceremonial. It never was. The chairwoman straightened. Then perhaps we should restart properly. We can, I said, if you'd like. She hesitated, just long enough. I had been invited into that room to decide whether $2.1 billion would move forward. I had agreed to come in person because trust mattered to me, because accountability did. They hadn't seen that. They saw flowers. They saw silence. They saw what they expected. I watched them recalibrate, one expression at a time. The chairwoman regained her rhythm quickly. Now that roles are clear, she said, we can proceed. The finance director hesitated. There is one item we still need to acknowledge. She didn't look at him. We've acknowledged everything. He tapped the folder in front of him. The conduct provision. Her eyes lifted at last. That clause was boilerplate. It wasn't, he replied. It was revised. I didn't interrupt. I let the room find the line on its own. A board member flipped pages. This one. The incoming chief executive officer leaned closer. What does it say? It ties capital deployment to reputational integrity during negotiations, the finance director answered. Any documented conduct that materially harms standing allows for immediate withdrawal. Another voice finished, reading ahead. The chairwoman exhaled sharply. That's a safeguard. It's theoretical. It's operational, I said quietly. She turned to me. Our legal team approved that language. They drafted it, I replied, at my request. A beat passed. You're concerned about optics? She asked. I was concerned about behavior. The board member with the papers glanced toward the camera mounted near the ceiling. This meeting is being recorded. For transparency, the chairwoman snapped. Yes, I said. For transparency. The finance director adjusted his glasses. The provision doesn't require intent, only impact and documentation. Another board member added. The incoming chief executive officer looked toward the camera, then back to her. She scoffed. It can be contextualized. People say things. It doesn't mean. It means exactly what it shows. Another board member interrupted publicly. She turned on him. You're siding with her. I'm protecting the company, he replied. There's a difference. Her gaze moved around the table, searching for support. It didn't find much. You embarrassed her, someone said quietly. She scoffed. She embarrassed herself. No, the chief financial officer said. She documented you. The chairwoman's face flushed. We can renegotiate. I stood then, slow enough that every eye followed. This isn't a negotiation. It's a consequence. You think this makes you powerful, she said, walking in here with flowers and threats. I walked in with authority, I replied. You chose not to see it. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Around her, chairs shifted, papers were gathered. People began speaking in lower voices, already distancing themselves from the moment. I picked up my folder. You can undo this. And for the first time since I entered the room, she understood that I was right. They didn't leave the room. The chairwoman expected a break, a pause she could control. Instead, the lead independent director cleared his throat and said, "We need to address governance now." She stared at him. "This is not the time." "It is," he replied, "especially now." The chief financial officer spoke next, measured but firm. "With the withdrawal executed, we are obligated to convene an emergency session immediately." She laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. "You're calling a board revolt over one incident." Overexposure, someone corrected, and risk. The incoming chief executive officer shifted in his seat. "My appointment hasn't even been ratified." "That's part of the problem," the director said. "We moved too fast." The chairwoman turned to him. "You supported this." "I supported stability," he said. "What happened today is the opposite." Phones were back in hands, not buzzing now, ringing. One of the board members covered the receiver and leaned in. "Trading desks are reacting." "How bad?" she demanded. "Pre-market indicators are down double digits." The room tightened. The chief financial officer added, "Banks are asking for clarification on liquidity." Her voice dropped. "Tell them it's a temporary disruption." "They already know it isn't," he said. "The funding withdrawal is public." She looked at me then, eyes sharp with something close to fear. "You planned this." "I prepared for it," I replied. The director spoke again. "We need to consider interim leadership." She slammed her hand on the table. "You're not removing me over a misunderstanding." "It wasn't a misunderstanding," another board member said. "It was recorded." Silence followed that, not stunned, decided. A vote was proposed, then another. Motions layered over each other, formal language masking urgency. I watched without speaking. When the chairwoman finally sat down, it wasn't in control. It was containment. The system she had built around herself was still functioning. It just wasn't answering to her anymore. The first call came before sunset. "We'd like a statement," the reporter said. "Just a sentence." "I'm not commenting," I replied. By the time I reached my hotel, my phone was warm from messages I hadn't opened. Analysts, partners, a junior associate who wrote only, "They're talking about it everywhere in the lobby." A television flickered above the bar. The headline crawled across the screen while two commentators argued beneath it. "This wasn't a market fluctuation," one said. "This was governance failure. The footage matters." The other replied, "You can't dismiss public conduct anymore." I took the elevator alone upstairs. I finally checked my inbox. Subject lines stacked like evidence. Emergency investor calls scheduled. Liquidity exposure under review. Board chair placed on administrative leave. Another message followed, this one from the finance director. "They're calling it a case study already." I set the phone down. An hour later, it rang again. This time, it was the incoming chief executive officer. "They're questioning my appointment," he said, voice tight. "They want distance." "That happens," I said. "You could clear this up." "I could," I agreed. "I won't." Silence stretched between us. "They're saying the withdrawal triggered everything." "It revealed it," I replied. He exhaled. "You're comfortable letting them define it that way." "I'm comfortable letting the record speak." Another call came through before he could respond. I ended the line. Outside my window, the city moved on. Traffic, lights, people who had no idea their pensions, their jobs. Their headlines were tied to a room full of people who laughed at the wrong moment. Later that night, a message arrived from the board's legal counsel. "We acknowledge your position. No further action required. I deleted it. By midnight, the story had settled into a shape no one could change. And for the first time since the meeting began, I slept without my phone beside me. The call came just after dawn. The board has suspended the chairwoman, the voice said. Interim leadership is in place. I listened without interrupting. We like to discuss next steps, he continued. Renegotiation. A path forward. There isn't one, I replied. A pause followed, measured and professional. We're prepared to make concessions. I'm not prepared to accept them. Another voice joined the line. Quieter. The company is exposed. Without your capital. You'll do what companies always do, I said. Adjust. Silence settled. Then you're walking away. I already did. By mid-morning, confirmations arrived. Leadership reshuffled. Committees dissolved. A public statement drafted and redrafted until it said nothing at all. The incoming chief executive officer sent a single message. I should have spoken up. I didn't answer. At noon, my partners gathered on a video call. No slides, no theatrics. We're launching the new fund, I said. Effective immediately. One of them leaned closer to the camera. Terms? Conduct first, I replied. Automatic withdrawal for documented disrespect. No warnings, no exceptions. Another nodded. That will narrow the field. Good. Someone smiled. What do we call it? I thought of the flowers still sitting by the hotel door, untouched. We'll decide later. In the afternoon, a reporter tried again. One comment, she said. People want to understand. They already do, I replied, and ended the call before leaving the city. I received a final message from the board's legal counsel. We acknowledge your refusal. No further contact will be made. I closed the thread and deleted it. That evening, I placed the flowers in a lobby vase on my way out. The receptionist thanked me. I nodded and kept walking. I didn't look back at the building. I didn't need to. The lesson I carry forward is simple and permanent. Respect is not a courtesy you earn after the fact. It is the cost of entry. Power doesn't announce itself with volume or titles. It shows itself in choices made calmly at the moment they matter.